Hello, in this video we're going to go over functions in PHP. Functions are extremely important to know about and know how they work, know how to create a function and know how to call a function, all of which is very easy and we're going to go over in this video. So let's erase what we did in the last video here. And functions, when we create a function, we can create a function before we call it or after we call it. So we can put a function here in our code and call our function. This isn't code, I'm just typing this to illustrate that we're calling this function. Call the function here, which is fine, or we could have put the function down here at the end of the page and that would have worked just the same. So that's the first difference to know about between functions and variables. Is a variable you must declare before you use it, but functions you can create anywhere you like in your PHP document, and we can call that function from anywhere. So we create a function using the keyword function. You can name this function anything you like. There are some limitations to that. It'll be pretty much the same limitations for variables, so you can't start it with a number, and it can only have letters, numbers, and underscores in it. So let's call this my function, and we're going to use parentheses here after our function name. And anytime you see parentheses in PHP, you're most likely going to be dealing with a function. I want to say in all cases you see parentheses, you'll be dealing with functions, but there are there's a few instances where that won't be true, but just starting out you won't have to worry about that. So the next thing we do is an opening curly brace, which is shift. It's going to be next to your P key on your keyboard, and you're going to hit shift and the key directly to the right of the P on your keyboard, and then the closing curly brace, which is just next to that on your keyboard. So anything between these two curly braces here is called a code block. Anything between here is going to be part of this function, and we can have this code block as small or as long as we like, as many lines I should say as we like, but just know that anything within this code block will be part of this function. So let's make our function do something here. Let's make it echo this function was called. Okay, and so let's go ahead and run this and see what happens. Okay, so as you can see, we just typed call the function here. That's just to illustrate something else, but as you can see, nothing was echoed. We created our function, but we never called our function. To call our function, let's just go down to the body here. We'll make another PHP script. I'm not sure why it keeps adding credits in there for some reason. And to call our function, all we do is our function name with the parentheses, and that's it, semicolon. You only need to use the function keyword when you're creating your function. When you call your function, you can just use the name that you gave it. And you're always going to want to end it with a parenthesis, as opposed to a variable, which you always begin with a $sign. Functions you always end with parentheses, and whether the parentheses are empty or not depends on your function, and we'll go over that more in a moment. So let's save this. Okay, there you go. This function was called, and we could call that function again, and it will just repeat the function. So this function was called, this function was called. And just to illustrate that we could have put this below where we called it, that would have worked fine. And the reason, and I'm reloading, you can see it's the exact same thing. The reason it'll work fine is because PHP will actually look at your functions before it even starts reading through your codes. It'll kind of say, okay, let's look at this PHP file. Let's pull the functions out first and kind of see what's going on with them, and then once we have the functions worked out, we'll go ahead and start reading the page. So it will actually find this function and you can kind of say load it into memory before it even starts before it even starts executing your file. So functions will always be have precedence there, and that's why you can create your function after you call it. Now, functions can also have what are called parameters. Some people call them arguments. There's a small difference between what an argument and a parameter is, but in most cases they're interchangeable. So a parameter is an argument, and an argument is a parameter. So let's give this function a parameter. We're going to use the $sign because we're making a variable, a parameter which is a variable. And let's name this. Let's just name it my num. And let's echo out this time. This function was called the number is, and then we can use our concatenation operator, and we will add on my. Now you might be wondering, what is my num? We just my num right now is just a variable, so this doesn't really make sense. The number is, well, what's the number, right? So the way this works is when we call our function, we're actually going to give it a parameter, give it an argument, and so let's give it the number 15. Save this and reload. So this function was called the number is 15. So the way this worked is my function was called and we gave it a value. We said go ahead and go to this function and take this value with you from where we called the function from. So we could have gone my 15, and we could have sent that into our function, and it would give us the exact same result. So and once this happens, my num is now 15, and it will echo this function was called the number is obviously 15. And we can also add multiple parameters to our function by using the comma. So we can go comma my name, and let's do I want to do this something different just so we see that it's not the same variable, we're actually passing it through. So my I don't know, my dog is Bernie, and so we can go my 15 my dog. Okay, so now when this function is called, there's two parameters passed down to the function, and the first one will always be my num, the second one will always be my name. You can't switch these around. The order in which they appear are going to be the order in which they are passed through the function. So my function, my num, my name, so we can go I know this will go out of your screen a little bit. Let me move this. His name is, and we'll concatenate my name. Save this. Reload. Okay, so this function was called the number is 15. His name is Bernie. Okay, so all that information was passed down into our function. And one last important thing to know before we end this video. As we discussed before, anything between these curly braces is a code block, and any variables in this code block are only available to the function. We cannot call my dog or my 15 directly from this function. We couldn't go echo my 15 because this variable is outside of this function. Functions can only take variables, which can only use variables which are inside their function. And the way we were able to access these is because we passed them through as parameters, as arguments, whatever you like to, however you like to say that. But we pass those through to our function, and once they're in, once our parameters are passed through to our function, we can do whatever we want with them. But my num will not affect my 15. If we change something in this function, it will not affect my 15. If we did my function, then we go echo my 15, this will always be 15 because it's up here. No matter what we do to it, if we add 5 to it or whatever in our function, it will not change the original my 15. It will only change things within the function. I know that might not have made a whole lot of sense. That will make more sense as we go along, so don't worry about it if you didn't get that right off the bat. Just know that between these curly braces, we cannot access things outside of this function uh, without some extra work. And one of the things we can do to make it work is passing the variables through to our function as parameters. Okay, well, thanks for watching. See you next time.